Hey everybody, Matt here for Imagine Then Make. Thanks for stopping by and welcome to part 9 of my Blender tutorial series. This one was a challenging one. I had to learn a few new things with Blender, but that's okay. I'm still learning Blender. This time around I decided to model a 3-piece wooden knot puzzle and then go ahead and animate the solution. But stick around to the end of the video because I have a confession to make. Okay, first things first, what is a knot puzzle? Well, here's an example of the one that I'm working on. This is a 3-piece wooden knot puzzle. If I hop up with Google and I Google what is a knot puzzle, there's a whole bunch of stuff that comes up. The one that I'm actually working with has 3 pieces. Here's a small picture of it. If I Google wooden knot puzzle plan, again, a whole bunch of stuff comes up. And here you can see some more pieces. Again, this is the style puzzle that I'm working with. This very first link at craftsmanspace.com, I took a look at the plan here for the puzzle pieces. This one I found very useful. And I also found another plan, all for free, right on the net at Scroll Saw Workshop's website. This is Steve Good. He's very active in the Scroll Saw community, and he's very generously put together thousands, hundreds if not thousands, of free plans that scrollers can download for free and use to cut out their projects. So when I do a little searching on Steve's website, lo and behold, there's the wooden knot puzzle, and you can download free plans. So I took a look at these plans and also these plans, and I noticed that the dimensions for the puzzle pieces are really very simple. So I knew I was going to want to cut out one of these. So I decided that the first thing I really needed to do was draw up the puzzle pieces using LibreCAD. Now, if you're not familiar with LibreCAD, it's a free open source 2D drawing program. I have a whole playlist that starts at someone from the very beginning. I show how to start using LibreCAD. I still actively use this program. It's very useful. I really like it because you can very accurately draw to scale and print to scale at any scale, really. So more about that later when I actually talk about cutting out the puzzle, probably in the follow-up video. Okay, so here's the first sort of O piece. Okay, if you look at it sideways, it looks like an O. This section right here is cut out. You can see that the puzzle piece is 2 units thick. Now, I didn't attach any dimensions to it. I just said 2. It could be 2 inches, 2 centimeters, 2 millimeters, whatever units the maker wants to cut the puzzle pieces out at. And again, there'll be more on that in the follow-up video. So this is what the first puzzle piece looks like. And you can see that the thickness of 2 units, all the other dimensions are some even multiple or division, in that case, of the thickness. So there's no fractional dimensions here, which is kind of interesting. Then the second piece actually looks like a sideways C. And here you can see there's like a T-shaped cutout. And once again, the piece is 2 units thick, and all the other dimensions are some multiple of 2. Okay? So the next step, now that I know what all the dimensions are for the 2 puzzle pieces, is I wanted to model it in Blender. So here I've obviously already done it, and you can see the OCC pieces. I've colored them different colors just to make them more visible, more distinct when you see all the puzzle pieces assembled together. So the next thing is to show you is how did I go ahead and model these 3 pieces using the dimensions that I already showed you in LibreCAD. All right, so how am I going to model these 3 pieces in Blender? So my thought process when I was first trying to think about how to do this is I was thinking about what I already know I know how to do in Blender. So I know when I start up a new scene in Blender, which is what I have here, and incidentally I'm still running 2.93.8, Okay, I haven't changed versions of Blender. So my new scene here has the familiar three objects: a camera, a default cube, and a light. And I know I can highlight or select my default cube right here in the outliner, and I can press the N key on my keyboard, and I can, with the item tab selected, I can see the dimensions of my cube. And the default cube is 2 meters by 2 meters by 2 meters. Now, as I said earlier, my LibreCAD drawing doesn't have any measurement system attached to the dimensions. It's just 2 units, not meters or centimeters or inches. So I figure I should probably do the same thing in my Blender model. So if I go to this one right here, Scene Properties, and I click on Units, I can select None, just as I've done in a previous video. Okay, so now my 2 meter by 2 meter by 2 meter cube is just dimensioned as 2 by 2 by 2, okay, with no particular measurement system attached. Okay, so this kind of matches my LibreCAD drawing thus far. Okay, now I also know that I can change the dimensions of this selected cube to anything I want just by changing these numbers. So, and you've seen me do this in a previous video. Okay, so I can make the size of the rectangle pretty much anything I want. All right, so I know how to do that. I also know that I can attach various rectangles or boxes in Blender to each other very precisely. I can locate them precisely. So if I try and show you how to do that real quick, I'm just going to move my tall rectangle out of the way. I'm just going to add another mesh, another default cube. Okay, and just for fun, I'm going to move this corner to this corner on the cube. So the first thing I want to do is select my tall rectangle. I'm going to go into wireframe and X-ray view just to make it easier for you to see. Here you can see the origin for my tall rectangle. What I want to do is I want to move the origin right to that vertex, that corner of the rectangle. So with my rectangle selected, I'm going to press Tab to go into edit mode. I'm already in vertex select mode. Again, you've seen this in a previous video. I'm going to box select this vertex. I'm going to press Shift S, and I'm going to move the cursor to the selected point, which is the vertex right there. So now my 3D cursor is right at that corner of the box. I'm going to tab out of edit mode and back into object mode. I'm going to right click. I'm going to choose the set origin menu and then origin to 3D cursor. So now the origin for this rectangle is right on that corner, which is what I want. I switch back over to my default cube, the second object that I added to my scene here, and I want to move the 3D cursor right to that corner. So I'm going to basically do the same thing. With this cube selected, I'm going to tab into edit mode. I'm going to box select this vertex, Shift S, and I'm going to move the cursor to the selected corner right there, vertex. Tab out of edit mode. Now if I press Shift, I'm going to select my rectangle, press Shift S. I'm going to move the selected object, which is the tall rectangle, to the 3D cursor. So I'm going to click this one, and now I have that tall rectangle. The two corners are attached. They're moved very precisely. So I know how to do that. Okay? So how does that apply to the puzzle piece that I want to make? Well, let's take a look at our LibreCAD drawing again. And when I look a little bit closer, I'll help you by turning this layer on. I drew a couple of extra red lines here to show you that this piece is really made up of 4 boxes. Okay, and I know the dimensions of all 4 of the boxes. So why don't I start with this top box, and we'll go back into Blender, start a new scene, and we'll draw this box, which is 8 by 2 by 2. We'll call this the X dimension, the Y dimension, and then the thickness will be the Z dimension, which is 2. So 8 by 2 by 2, X, Y, and Z. So let's switch back over to Blender. We're going to start a new scene. Not going to save what I've already got. So here we have the same 3 familiar objects. I'm going to start with the first cube. Press the N key on my keyboard. We're going to change our units again. Let's go back to none. Try and stay consistent with our LibreCAD drawing. Okay, and so we said X was going to be 8. Y was going to be 2, which it already is, and Z was going to be 2, which it already is. Okay, so there's our first rectangle drawn in 3D. So I hope if I move it like this, you'll see that it's this rectangle drawn now in 3 dimensions. Okay, so now let's move this one out of the way. And let's go ahead and add another cube. So add mesh cube. And it comes right in where the 3D cursor is, right at the world origin. Now let's see what the dimensions of this cube needs to be. So if we look at our LibreCAD drawing, this square right here is 2 by 2 by 2. And that just happens to be exactly what we have here. So this second box is already drawn for us. So let's just move this slightly out of the way, like so. And now let's go ahead and add a third cube. So add mesh cube. And there we are right there. Switch back over to LibreCAD. Now this one needs to be 1 by 2 by 2. Switch back over to Blender. Okay, so this first dimension needs to be 1 by 2 by 2. All right, so that block is drawn. Okay, and now let's take a quick look back at our LibreCAD drawing. This last block right here happens to be a duplicate of the top one. And so we know how to duplicate objects. I'm going to select the object to duplicate, press Shift D, and then I'm going to press the Enter key. So now you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes. The last one that I just added is right here. It's highlighted. So if I click on my Move tool, and move that over, change our dimension there in the Z. Okay, so there's our 4 boxes. Okay, and I hope you can see that that is very similar to what we have now in our LibreCAD drawing. So all we have to do is move these boxes in contact with each other, corner to corner. Okay, so let's do that. Alright, so I'm going to select this first box. We'll go back into wireframe and x-ray just so you can see it. I'm going to tab into edit mode, box select this first vertex. I'm going to push Shift S. I'm going to move the cursor to the selected point. There's where our 3D cursor got moved to. Tab out of edit mode, right click, set origin to 3D cursor. So now the origin is right there. Okay, so now if we move the 3D cursor right over here, we should be able to use the same Shift S menu to move the selection to the cursor. So let's tab into edit mode, box select this vertex, Shift S, cursor to selected. Okay, if I tab out of edit mode, select this, Shift S, selection to cursor. So now these two boxes are in contact corner to corner. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's carry on. We're going to do the same thing, only now with this rectangle. Okay, so I want to move the origin to that corner. Tab into edit mode, box select this corner, Shift S, cursor to selected. tab out of edit mode, right click, set origin, origin to 3D cursor. So now the origin for this rectangle is right in that bottom corner. Let's go back to this first box. We want to move the 3D cursor back to this corner. Tab into edit mode, box select this vertex, Shift S, cursor to selected. Tab out of edit mode. Okay, so now select this rectangle, Shift S, selection to cursor. And there you go. We have one box left. Hopefully this is making sense. It just takes a little bit of practice. There is definitely some mouse clicks you have to do, and you have to understand what you're doing, but it's really not that hard. Okay, so let's move the origin, which is right here, to this bottom corner. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, box select this vertex, Shift S, cursor to selected, tab out of edit mode, right click, set origin to 3D cursor. Okay, I'm going to select this. I'm going to move the 3D cursor right to this corner. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, select this vertex, Shift S, cursor to selected. Then I'm going to tab out of edit mode, select this box, and I'm going to Shift S, selection to cursor. Okay. Just move the 3D cursor out of the way a little bit. Turn shading on. And there's our O piece. I know that kind of sounded complicated, but hopefully if you slow the video down, watch it a couple of times, you'll see the steps. It just takes a little bit of practice. Okay, so let's go into wireframe in X-ray mode one more time. And if I select all four of the boxes, you can see that there's, well, 1, 2, 3, 4 origins. Let's kind of clean that up a little bit just to make it a little easier to see. So I'm going to click the first box, right click, set origin to geometry. That moved the origin of this top rectangle into the middle of the rectangle. Select this square. The origin is already in the middle. Select this one. The origin right now is in the corner. If I right click, set origin, origin to geometry. Now the origin is in the middle. And if I click on this bottom rectangle, the origin was moved to the corner. Let's right click, set origin, origin to geometry. So now the origin is in the middle. So now if I select all four boxes, you can see that the origin for each box is moved into the middle of its respective box. Now I knew I wanted to animate the pieces when I show the solution to the puzzle. And in my experience, one of the things that I learned I needed to do was make sure there's only one origin for the piece you want to move. That way you have better control over what you're moving where. So the best way to combine all four of these boxes into one and only have one origin is by using the join command. So you can find it under Object, the Object menu, and then Join. Okay, so it just did that. It just joined all four rectangles into one piece, and it chose the origin location to be, I think this was the last piece that I selected. Okay, I can change this if I right click and set origin to geometry. Now the origin of my newly joined piece is right in the middle. Okay, if I turn on shading, there you go. So now we probably want to add some color. So let's go down here, and under materials we can choose the base color, and let's turn on material preview so we can see it, and let's make it a green. And that's a very intense looking green, so let's kind of dull it down a little bit. And there you go. So now we have the first puzzle piece in the proper dimensions, made from 4 separate boxes that are all sized to match the drawings in our LibreCAD drawing. All right. We have the same nondescript units over here, no measurement system attached to the units, and we attached a color or a material just so we could distinguish this piece from the others. All right. So all I did was repeat the same process for the other 2 pieces, which have these dimensions. And again, if I turn on my extra little red lines, you can see this piece is made out of 1 top rectangle, 2 smaller boxes here, and then 2 more. So this one's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes. So all I did was do the same thing in Blender and create the 5 boxes and all join them corner to corner. And then once all that was done, select all 5 boxes and use the join command to set one origin for the whole piece. And then for convenience, I move the origin to the middle of the geometry. Okay, so that kind of describes how I modeled the 3 pieces. So here I have the 3 puzzle pieces modeled at a previous time. You can see they're all different colors. And I've kind of oriented them in the place where I know they'll go together. Okay, so here's the confession part. Okay, when I first went through this exercise and had modeled up the 3 pieces, I really didn't understand how they went together to form the finished knot puzzle. So in truth, what I had to do was go back to my LibreCAD drawing, print out some templates, and actually cut out the parts for the puzzle. Okay, so I went down to my shop with my scroll saw and some scale drawings, attached it to a piece of scrap wood. This is scrap hardwood, actually, from an old piece of furniture someone was throwing away. And I cut out the puzzle pieces and filed them enough so that there was lots of room between the pieces. Once I had this in my hand, then I was able to figure out what the solution to the puzzle was or is. So the confession is, even though it's a lot of fun to play with Blender and to draw up things in 3D and make them move, at least for me, at the level that I'm at, the only way I could solve this puzzle was to actually make one. So as fun as the 3D simulation of a real object is, it's not as good as the real object, at least for me. Okay? So with that confession out of the way, all I did then is, once I understood how the 3 pieces go together, I moved them into position and I used the animation workspace to create some keyframes for each of the pieces. And then when I went ahead and animated it, this is what I came up with. Okay, so that's basically how I did it. It took a long time because there were a lot of things I needed to learn how to do, but it all worked out. I hope you learned a few things. Thanks very much for watching.